Hi, and welcome to my deck. It's October. It's still 90 degrees here in Kentucky. Hopefully we get some relief soon. I wanted to introduce you to the world's first sodium-ion power station. That's right, sodium. I'm just trying to interject a little humor here with this giant bucket of sea salt, but it's behind it. You can see the color. It's blue. It's beautiful. This is the Bluetti Pioneer Na, or as I'm calling it, the Salty AC180. It is, as near as I can tell, the exact same case and very similar specifications as the Bluetti AC180, except it has a completely different battery chemistry. It is sodium ion. I printed out a little cheat sheet here of some of the specs just because there's so many numbers that are just confusing to try and rattle off back to back. But this uses what they're calling layered oxide sodium ion. As I understand, there's an entire family of that, and the chemistry is still developing, so I'm not sure exactly what is in this, but it's not lithium iron phosphate. It is sodium based. The sticker on the back even shows different pack voltage compared to the AC180, so it's different. The major advantage that the sodium gives you is a wider temperature range, and this is why I made my cheat sheet here. The AC180 with the conventional lithium iron phosphate is good to discharge down to -4 Fahrenheit. But you cannot charge it below freezing. So the minimum temperature to charge it is 32 degrees, and ideally it's warmer than that. It will severely throttle and cut off charge if you're anywhere close to that. The sodium ion specification for this, you can discharge it down to -13 Fahrenheit, and you can charge it as low as 5 Fahrenheit. What advantage does that give you? Do you maybe have a off-grid cabin that you let get cold when you're not present? Do you maybe have a shed in your yard that you would keep a power station running from, solar on the roof of the shed, and you have a winter and it gets cold, and that might be a good use? This is also just kind of a test bed unit. It's, again, the first of its kind, probably why it's in the same case as an existing model. Let's maybe review some of the specifications. So the AC180 has a 1,800 watt inverter, 1,800 watt inverter. I think this might have the same inverter. It is rated at 1,500 watts. Probably throttled because of the discharge rate of the battery. I've tested it a bit over 1,500 watts, and it seems just as stout as the AC180 inverter. And we'll do some more of that here. They're claiming 4,000 charge cycles on this. It weighs the same. This is 35.2 pounds for the AC180, 35.3 pounds for the Pioneer Na. They both have the same 500 watt solar input. They both have the DC 7909 input jack. They both have a 100 watt Type C, and then the smaller conventional USB ports. It's a beautiful color, isn't it? Just absolutely gorgeous. They both have the wireless charger on the top. Very interesting unit. The AC180 will charge at up to 1,440 watts in turbo. This will charge at 1,400 watts. Again, very similar specifications. Yeah, it's a neat little unit. Let's go do some testing. So let's do a little up close comparing the fronts, which, I previously said are the same, but 12 to 60 volt, 10 amp, 500 watt input, 12 to 60 volt, 500 watt, 10 amp input, 12 volt locking, also, by the way, locking. This is twist to lock. On the AC180, it is the same, locking 12 volt port. Type C 100 watt, Type C 100 watt, 5 volt 3 amp, 5 volt 3 amp, 5 volt 3 amp, 5 volt 3 amp, quad NEMA 1520s, quad NEMA 1520s, Yeah, it's the same. The AC 180 though, 1800 watt, 1152 watt hour, lithium iron phosphate again. The Pioneer Na, 1500 watt rated inverter, continuous, 900 watt hours. So less inverter, less watt hours. The watt hours is a developing thing with a developing battery. Let's look at the back. So here's the sticker on the back of the AC 180, 1152 watts, 32 volts, 36 amp hours. Let's pan over to the Pioneer Na, where we see something very different. 900 watt hours, 30 volts, 30 amp hours. And the rest of the specs. Okay, we're gonna do a full load discharge test here. I've got the Pioneer Na hooked up to grid power here on the side. I've got my meter on the output, zeroed for kilowatt, AC on. This is a 1500 watt heater. But before that, it's sitting on top of my AC 500, and the AC 180 that we mentioned or showed you a little bit ago is just over there. So look at just the striking color difference under indoor light. If you recall, it's just as striking outside, but this is a beautiful color. I love this blue. Okay, so I'm gonna reach in here and unplug the grid input. You can see the battery gauge just started counting down here. And we will turn on my heater, 1500 watts. Let it go. You can hear the fan kick up. See where she settles in. 17 surge, 1770, 1780. There, we're dropping down, and we should settle typically about 1450, I think, for this heater. $15.25. Okay, we'll let that go. I will come back and report on watt hours delivered when we're done. That discharge has completed. I let the unit cool for 4 or 5 hours, and now I'm doing a charge, full charge, on the turbo setting. Something interesting, it is one of the first Bluetti units I've seen that actually kind of dead nuts hits the input rating. This thing is rated for 1400 watts max charge, and it is 1399, 1400 right there. But listen to the fan. I don't know if you can hear the fan. I've got my microphone in my hand, and let me just sort of hold it up here. This fan is, it's quite the screamer. Yeah, so that's interesting. We are back, and we are fully charged after a full discharge. Actually, I did that twice. So let me pull up some numbers here. I also did some other testing, so I'm going to try and hold this pretty stable here. Well, maybe pull it up a little bit. So we'll get to the charge-discharge down here, but let's first look at standby/UPS consumption. So this is my version of testing of what happens if you use this device as a standby UPS, like a desktop, APC, CyberPower, that sort of thing. It's plugged into the wall all the time. You're running your computer and other loads through it. So first I ran it with no outputs on, so just plugged into the wall, just sitting idle. I ran it for 52.5 hours. It consumed 376.32 watt hours. You divide that by the hours, I got 7.17 watts of standby use. That is to keep the electronics on and powered up. And it will go to sleep, just like other units if you don't have an output on. The next, I did it as with just the DC output on. So 44.1 hours, 363.0 watt hours consumed, divide those. 8.23 watts of standby power. That is with no load attached to DC. That's just having the DC circuitry active. Then I did it with the AC on. So this is how you would run it if you're actually using it as a UPS system for your home office, that sort of thing. 63 hours, we consumed 528.15 watt hours. Divide those, 8.38 watts of standby consumption. And this is indeed a standby UPS. It is not doing any active power conversion or anything like that. So I would not expect with load that number really goes up any significant or realistic amount. And as I mentioned previously, my APC UPSs that I still utilize as for my network adjustable storage device and some other things consume quite a bit more than this, particularly when they have lead acid batteries attached, because they're constantly floating those lead acid batteries. The Bluetti devices with their lithium iron phosphate chemistry do what I call a bump charge, and I'll try to put a graph of that up here, but it will periodically top off the battery in a cycle, consume some power, drop down to zero, consume some power, drop down to almost zero. And that is far more efficient than constantly charging a lead acid battery. I have found in the APCs that I converted to lithium phosphate, they consume far less power than they do when they have lead acids attached, but they still consume quite a bit more than this. Okay, let's get down to the discharge and charge testing. I actually did each of these twice. So this first one is 100 to 0 with a 1500 watt heater attached. It settled in at like 1478 watts, something like that. It ran for 34 minutes both times. The first time I measured on this meter here, 823 watt hours delivered out of 900 specified on the face of the unit here. So that is 91.4% of its nameplate capacity I got out as delivered to my device. That seemed really high, so I did it a second time. I got just slightly less that time, 812 watt hours for 90.2%, but those are both very, very high numbers. I'm used to seeing something in the high 80s, so maybe the sodium ion chemistry is a little more efficient. Yeah, very interesting. And then in both of these cases, I recharged from 0 to 100% with the unit set at turbo. The first time it consumed 1,219 watt hours, so divided by, again, the nameplate capacity. 135.4% of nameplate capacity it took to charge it to full. And then I did that a second time. It took a little bit less that second time, so 125%. So if you actually subtract these two numbers, you'll get sort of the electricity lost in the charging process. So the first time there were 319 watt hours lost, and the second time there were 233 watt hours lost. And that is lost to heat, lost to the fan running, lost in the inverter, the AC to DC conversion, and lost in the battery chemistry itself. So just interesting data points. Both times it took right at about 71 minutes, and I do have a graph of this I will put up here also. Something interesting that you will find with these power stations, both the lithium phosphate and this sodium ion guy here, they won't just take off charging at full speed. From zero, they throttle quite a bit and then accelerate the charge, reach a plateau, and then toward the top end, they'll taper off again. And so I did capture a graph of that here. We started at about 340 watts, and it slowly ramped up. And by the time it got to about 20% indicated capacity, we were at the full 1400 watt turbo setting for most of the charge. And then as you can see, it fell off right at the end as we reached 100. So very interesting data points. This efficiency particularly interests me. That is remarkably high. All right, now for something else. Okay, now time for some cold weather testing. Actually, I don't think throwing this in my freezer in hot weather right now is a good idea. I don't want to get condensation on it. I don't have a way to, vapor protect it, pulling it out of the freezer. And it's 35 pounds, and those are glass shelves. Maybe if I had a walk-in or a chest freezer, or if it was February outside and close to zero, that would be a good time to cold test this. I'm sure there are others out there that have a better way to cold test it than I do right now. Welcome to some motor load testing outdoors with the Pioneer Na. I have here my oilless air compressor, 2 horsepower rated. It is 15 amp and draws some pretty decent inrush. I run this quite a bit with my AC180 and it is no problem with that. I previously showed it with the with the Elite 100, which ran it just fine. Now we're going to try it with this. I did take some criticism last time because I started with an empty or near empty tank. Right now we have like 65 pounds of air in the tank, so we're going to get some decent motor load with that, at least continuous load. I don't think that really affects the inrush, the startup, because this does have a decompression valve on it for the first couple revolutions of the motor. But once it gets going, yes, the higher tank pressure will increase the steady state load. And then down here to my left, we have a 6 horsepower peak rated shop vac, and this draws some pretty good inrush too. So we've got 2 pretty beefy motors here. As you can see down here, I've got the app loaded. We're doing a screen record on that. So let's put that screen record up here on the side, and we'll try the shop vac first and see what we get. All right, I think I saw like 1700, give or take, peak on there. Let's try the air compressor and see what we get. Let's do it one more time. I wasn't looking directly at the screen. Okay, the highest I saw on the screen here was like 1256. I'm not sure what the app reflected. Kind of slow to update. Let's just hit the shop vac one more time and see what we get there while I'm watching it carefully. Okay, the first time I saw 1833 on the screen, so that's a pretty good inrush. This will no doubt run your domestic fridge, freezer for quite some time. Let's do a quick little app tour of the Pioneer Na. This is going to be mostly the same as the AC180. If I tap on the PV icon here at the top left, it takes you to the detail screen for that. If I tap on the grid icon for at the top right, it takes you to the grid input section. If I tap on the AC output at the bottom right, it shows you that. If I tap on the DC at the bottom left, it shows you nothing, which is what most of these do. If I tap on the 94%, the battery in the middle, it will show me the battery status. And notice this is in the new format, so this does differ from the AC180. Shows you the BMS information there, serial number of the battery, which is the same as the serial number of the unit. Down below, I can turn AC on, DC on. You can hear the unit click. This does have the PV statistics, shows you how much power you've made from the sun, that sort of thing. If I tap on, if you look at the top right here, you can see that little diamond. That means it is in turbocharge. If I tap on the little nut icon, it's gear at the top right, takes you to the details screen. You can set the Bluetooth password. You can set it to display as the main unit on your homepage in the Bluetti app. Charge mode, standard, silent, and turbo. But take a look here. This is a new feature all the way down at the bottom, custom, somewhat almost hidden. If you tap on that, you can adjust the grid charge current to various amounts in 1 amp increments, and it will tell you down below what that will give you for charge. So that is super useful. One of the criticisms that I and many people have on the AC180 is there is quite a big gap between standard charge and turbo, and it is this lets you pick whatever you want, which is a super useful feature. Powerlifting, you can turn on and off. On. Eco, AC and DC eco modes, just like many other units, where it will shut off the output if your consumption is below the specified wattage for the specified amount of time. This gets a lot of people trying to power fridges from units. If you're going to power a portable fridge or even a stand-up fridge, I urge you to turn eco mode off, because refrigerators typically do not consume much, if any, power when they are not actively cooling, and in that situation the eco mode can shut off your fridge. Down below that, firmware upgrade. This is where we also do differ from the AC180. This has the new style firmware update menu. You can see I'm current on all of these, but if there were multiple updates, it would let me do them all at once with a single click. That is a very, very welcome feature. Advanced. This does have the new system switch recovery, where it will turn the output back on if you had it on when the unit went off due to low battery. Once it gets up to a certain state of charge, I think maybe 5 or 10%, it will turn the output back on if it was on when it went flat. Grid self-adaptation. This also does have the new style where you can change the numbers to fit your circumstance if you find you need to. Very neat feature. All right. Conspicuously absent here, this is not a unit with the UPS modes. Notice there is no working mode setting in here. This is a standard UPS, offline UPS. All right, that is the tour of the app. All right, we're standing outside in front of my ginormous All Powers SP039 folding solar panel. This thing is a beast. It's bigger than a sheet of plywood. It is rated for 600 watts of peak output. It is the largest folding solar panel that you can get that I'm aware of, or at least it was when I got it. This panel has been my ticket to maxing out the AC180's solar production, and it's probably going to be about all I'm going to be able to get out of this. I've got all these other panels, but I can't configure them in a way to get 10 amps at 50 volts, but not 60 volts open circuit, which is a challenge for this 60 volt controller. So I put a nice extension cord on it, and we're going to plug that into the Pioneer Na and see what we get with the DC7909 connector. Let's plug that in, and I just feel that we lost some sun. This may not be good. I may have to try this again in a little bit. Pull up the app here. I don't know where I'll put it, somewhere on the screen. Okay, so 171 watts, that's abysmal. 39 volts, 4.7 amps. We can do far better. I've seen far better. I'll be back in a little bit when this picks up.
One eternity later.
We just came out of the cloud, and we just peaked out the solar controller. 10 amps, 408 watts. If we continue to get more sun, the voltage will go up and the watts will go up accordingly. It's not going to take any more current, but if you can't take all the current from the panel, it will respond by giving you more voltage, and we can get more power that way. I have seen like 420, 430, maybe even more out of this panel connected to my AC 180. We're getting 405 now at 41 volts, 407, 408. Just saturated the controller at 10 amps. So yeah, this thing will bring in the power. Yeah, what is it? You know, it's an AC 180 with a different battery. What's the point of that? What's Bluetti's market for this? Where would this, well, and it has a smaller capacity battery. Where would you use this? What's the target for this? Well, I think it's kind of more of a test bed. You know, they didn't want to maybe develop a new product completely around this battery chemistry, so they put it in a known good, sort of unit. And the point of that would be to take advantage of the chemistry's extension of temperature range, the cold temperature range. Where would this have an advantage over an AC 180? Car camping, van camping. Say you lived in a reasonably cold climate and wanted to drive around with this in the back of your car or SUV, connected to a fridge, heating blanket, that sort of thing. You could charge this below freezing. Have a charger 1 hooked up in the vehicle, get in, drive away as low as 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The AC 180, it will refuse to take power until not just the air, but the internals get to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So this definitely has an advantage in that sort of thing. The Bluetti Pioneer Na, it's new. It's different. It's the first of, I think, quite a few devices that we're going to start seeing that will use a sodium chemistry. I'm looking forward to how that goes. Thanks for watching.